Hey, welcome back. It's the podcast growth series. I am Rob Z, your host. We already walked through, if you watched part one, which I'm hoping you did before you watch part two, go back and watch part one, all about the launch of your podcast and to break that process down for you. But right now, we're going to get into streamlining because listen, I hosted a podcast for many, many years before I ever streamlined my process. Once I streamlined my process, the game changed. My execution went up, my reach went up, my outreach went up, my monetization went up, everything increased, viewership, everything got better whenever I decided to streamline things. So I want to help you with this process as you're getting your podcast off the ground. We're going to go through 6 major pieces of the puzzle today. We're going to start with editing, right? So yesterday, and I have my sheet in front of me so I don't miss anything as we're talking here. Yesterday, we were talking about getting your podcast released, actually getting it launched. That's the hardest part for most people, is just to get it off the ground and make it happen, right? But the thing that slows most people down, speaking the truth here from experience, is the editing portion of this. So I'm going to let you know what I do right now. I use Streamyard for my podcast. I do everything live for my podcast. There's no editing, nothing. I'm doing it live, it's released live, it's done live. Everything's live. Unless something goes horribly wrong, which nothing ever has, knock on wood. My desk is made of wood. I do everything live. But if you want to start off by recording and editing and doing that sort of thing, I'm going to walk you through the process, right? So editing, if you want to just do audio, so say you're just doing an audio podcast, you can use Audacity.com. It's an online audio editing tool, absolutely free. Audacity is amazing. Download that. I'd recommend using that. Why buy software? For video, so I keep things super low budget. I'm just letting you know, I make a good living off of my podcast, and I do it super low budget, okay? If you're going to do video and you're going to do editing, I would use either iMovie if you're an Apple person, Clipchamp if you're PC. Clipchamp is absolutely free. Or InShot, which is a great app that you can have on an iPad, a phone, an Android, anything like that. It might be, $20 a year or something like that. If you want to get more technical, sure, go ahead, use Adobe Audition or Adobe Premiere or whatever you'd want to use there. But I'm telling you, keep it simple. You're going to hear that on this video a lot. Keep it simple, stupid, or keep it stupid, simple. That's how I like to say the KISS method. Now, let's talk about if you're doing video, how do you get the audio? So if you're doing video, then use an extractor tool. VLC Player, you can download that. That's absolutely free. You can extract audio from video. So once you do the video version, you can extract the audio and upload the audio version to the audio platforms, right? You can also, if you have Streamyard, I just extract mine through Streamyard. Most platforms that record video online now allow you to extract the audio. So figure that out for yourself. Everybody does things differently. I use Streamyard. I used to use a VLC player, but make sure you extract the audio right from the video. That way you've got both versions, audio and video, right? Do not get in the weeds with your editing. The thing that kills everybody is they start recording episodes and they get caught up in the weeds of cutting out the ums and the ahs and the pause breaks. And listen, if you love what you're talking about, and you're good at holding a conversation, and you should be doing a podcast, then you know how to keep a flow of conversation going. Don't go back and think you got to cut out everything that might be a tiny discrepancy. I leave everything in unless something goes horribly wrong. I'm just saying that because I don't have time to waste looking backwards. I want to move forwards. So don't get lost in the weeds with your editing. Good is great. Keep that in your head. Good is great. Good is great. Make that a mantra for your podcast. It doesn't need to be perfect. You just need to execute and get those episodes out there. Later on, once you're streaming, once you're rolling and this thing's streamlined and you're dropping a couple episodes a week, then if you want to make things great, make things great. Listen, I'm not you, but I want to just get you in the momentum of creating episodes. And do not take more than 30 minutes per episode to edit. Okay, I'm just going to say that. So that's what it is about editing. Editing, tread lightly. Don't get lost in the weeds. Now prep for your shows. make a show template. So I make a show template for all of my shows. It's the same thing every single time. I run it through ChatGPT. It's a template that I run in ChatGPT, and I use a scheduler called Zcal, Z-C-A-L, for people to schedule with me for the podcast. There's a questionnaire in the Zcal. They fill out the questionnaire. I pop that questionnaire into ChatGPT, and when it's in ChatGPT, I put a template in with that with their information they wrote about the podcast that automatically spits out a template that I can use to post for the podcast episodes. So these text templates, these show templates are something you want to use. This helps to put a system in place for what you're doing. If you want to get more in depth with this, if this sounds kind of confusing, then you need to set up a call with me. Okay, set up a personal call with me. You can go to robzwentz.com. You can see that link right there on the video right here. Go to robzwentz.com, schedule a call with me, and let's make that happen. If this is confusing to you, make sure you follow all your guests on social. So if somebody's coming on, or if you want somebody to come on, follow them on social media. Follow them the whole way through on social media. Okay, every platform you can find them on. Make sure for the prep for the show, when you're leading up to it, make sure they're in a quiet location. You don't want to get on. You don't want to get on an episode and realize like that this person's in a loud location. One time when I was doing a podcast, a guy had his 2 kids in the room, and I was like, man, like, just be considerate of the people. It's something to be considerate of. You should be in a quiet room. They should be in a quiet room. And also make sure you get their email. Add it to your email list and build that email list. That's just some prep stuff to get you ready for the show. Now for booking your guests, like if you're going to book your guests in your podcast, you want an online calendar. Calendly is probably the most famous one. I use Zcal, Z-C-A-L. It's fantastic. I love Zcal, not just because I'm Rob Z, but I think Zcal is an excellent platform. Give them a form to fill out, like I said, so that form should have some details in it. If you want more depth on that, schedule a call with me. Get their emails. Make sure you always ask for referrals, right? Your podcast should eventually become referral based, where no longer are you looking for people to come on. You've had great guests on, and at the end of the episode, you say, hey, do you know 2 or 3 people? Actually, you say this in advance. In advance, when they're booking the show, do they know 2 or 3 people who'd be a great guest? They might list a couple of people. Then when you do the episode, when you're done, say, hey, you had mentioned this person and this person would be a great guest for my podcast. Would you mind making a referral, making a connection for me? And 99.9% of the time, they are more than happy to do that for you. Now you're getting recurring great guests on a regular basis. Ask how, when you're booking these guests in that form, how can you make them look good in the episode? They're going to be so happy and so pleased that they know that you're going to promote something about them and make them look really good in this episode by driving traffic to whatever it is that they're doing. Because that's usually why they're on the podcast, right? And also ask how you can refer them, right? So you're getting referrals for podcasts, but also who do they need to connect to? Who are the right people for them to be talking to? You make those referrals for them and make those connections for them. Now you're building real, long-lasting relationships with people, not just one-off podcast episodes, okay? Next, in order to streamline, you need a good intro and a good outro. I'm just going to say, how do you start? How do you finish? Now, for me, I have an intro video and an outro video. I created those in Canva and then put them into Streamyard, and now every episode, front and back, there's an intro, outro. But also think about, to be streamlined, you need to have something that you say every single time to get into the thing, and you need to have something every single time to get out of the thing. I spent 20 years in radio broadcasting, and it was drilled into my head, know how you're getting out of this. You can talk about anything you want, know how you're going to get out of it beforehand, okay? So sometimes the hardest part of anything is just starting. So when you're starting an episode, how the heck do you start it? I always start with, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Unstuck Movement. I'm your host, Rob Z. This platform was created to help you break the chains that have been holding you back in your life. So I bring on guests who have true testimonies of breakthrough to inspire you. There you go. Boom. I have it down. I've said it hundreds of times. So it's just down. I just say it, right? So that's the intro. That's how I get into every episode. So it's not clunky. It's not awkward. And you don't have to worry about it. And then to get out, how do you get out of it? Simple. Here's the simple one for me. I ask them, hey, how can we support you? What's something we can do for you, for the guest? They talk about the thing that will support them or plug them. I say, thank you so much. And I want to honor you for being a member of the Unstuck Movement. That's it. That's how I end. I know how I get in. I know how I get out. Also, what do you promote, right? So what are you promoting on these episodes? Your intro and outro. Is there a sponsorship? Is there a program, a course, or something that you want to promote? Think about that. Make sure you've got that promotion ready to go for the beginning and the ending of your episodes. And use the KISS method. Be formulaic. Keep it stupid simple. Have a formula. Keep it simple. Don't complicate it. That's the biggest thing. This is why streamlining is so important. Building a process and system into what you do. It's so important. Once you streamline it, it's going to make things so much easier for you. And this also builds that recognition and that familiarity for you. The recognition and familiarity. You say the same things all the time. They hear the same things all the time. You have a formula that sticks in people's head. I know you've heard this before, like in the media, right? If you say a lie enough, if you say a lie enough times, people start to believe it, even if it's a lie, right? So say the truth. Say the truth enough times. People will believe it, and they'll come to know you for what you do. And also, don't forget to promote you. Promote you, something you're doing, what you're all about, and how people can get in contact with you in your intro and outro. How are they going to get a hold of you? All right, think about that. In Streamyard, what is great, down here at the bottom where it has the free guide at robzwentz.com, you can see on my screen. In Streamyard, that is my website link. So throughout every single episode, my coaching website, leadimpacttransform.com, is down at the bottom of the screen in every episode. Eventually, it'll say Rob Z. Wentz as I merge these websites together, but I'm using Rob Z. Wentz right now for you for podcasting strictly, okay? So going into streamlining here a little bit more, we have editing, we have prep, booking guests, intro and outro. Let's talk about releases and clips, okay? Now, should you create a regular release schedule? Like I release every Friday at 4 p.m. That could be your schedule. Do you want to do that? That helps you to streamline your process so you know when you release, which holds you to the fire because now you've told people this is when I release the show, and also people know when to expect to hear or see what you're doing and what you have released this week. I personally don't use a release schedule just because I do like anywhere from 4 to 6 podcasts a week. I drop them as I do them. Now, will I have a release schedule? I probably should. And I think as I'm saying this right now to you, I should probably implement a release schedule. And I think that I will do that. But I test out different times to see what works well. And in StreamYard, you can actually schedule when your episodes come out and you can do them live. So that's an option there. But should you make it a regularly scheduled program, right? How do you turn episodes into clips? What are you going to do? There's a great platform called Opus Pro. What is it called? Make sure I want to get the name right for you. I know it's Opus Pro, but I can't think of the exact website. It's AI software, and it's been game changing for me to take. For some reason, the video paused there. I'm not quite sure why. Yeah, it's Opus.pro. I don't know what the heck just happened. Opus.pro. That is what I use to release clips of my podcast. You can do that also, and that's been game changing for me. Also, if you want to just pull out clips yourself, this is very painstaking, takes a lot of time. You can just timestamp your episode. So when you start your episode, first of all, you should always use a timer on your phone when you start an episode so you know how long you've been talking for. But if you use that timer, then if somebody says something or you say something that's like, man, that'd be a great clip, you just look at what time it is and you write down that time so you can go back to that general time in the episode to find that clip for yourself, right? So if you don't want to use an Opus Pro and you want to do it yourself, which can take a lot of time to do it yourself, that time stamping is a great idea. Can you do your show live? Talk about streamlining, being able to release it live. That's huge. It's done. It's out there, and people aren't waiting. So, when you have a podcast guest on, I was on a podcast a year ago, and the lady who had me on the podcast just released our episode this past week from a year ago. I forgot I even had done the podcast. I actually reached out to the lady, say, hey, I'd love to be on your podcast. And she said, Rob, you've already been on it. And I was like, oh. And she hadn't even released the episode a year later. So I had even forgotten that I'd done it. It had been that long. So when you do it live, then it's out there. You can tag them. They know it. They see it. Boom. It's out there. That's why I recommend StreamYard. Make sure you get audio and video for those releases and episode images, right? So if you want to, you can make an image for each individual episode. I don't. I just use a generic episode image for every single one. And to wrap this episode up here, talking about streamlining, scheduling. So going back to the online calendar, Zcal or Calendly, set up 15-minute discovery calls, right? If you don't know the person, or if they're not a super strong referral from somebody else, use your online scheduling software to schedule a 15-minute discovery call, just so you can learn a little bit about the person. They can learn a little bit about you. You can make initial connections and start to just build that relationship. Find out what they do. Find out who's a good referral for them. You know, these sorts of things are really important if you want to make great connections before the podcast goes on the air, to make sure that it goes off without a hitch, right? And always ask for a referral, like I said earlier, and add guests to your spreadsheet. So have a spreadsheet, either a CRM or you can use, Sheets in Google or whatever it is, but keep a spreadsheet of your guests, the date they came on, what industry they're in, that sort of thing. That way, when you're referring people, you're going back through trying to find somebody that matches somebody else. You have, here's a spreadsheet of everybody that's been on to connect people to each other. This was a lot of information. I understand that. Maybe a bit of a long episode, but I hope this was very valuable information for you. I want you to be able to streamline this process. And like I said before, get this podcast like a pro launch strategy guide to help you streamline even more. Oh, looks like I got a friend request here. That's what you get for playing Fortnite during the workday. So, this launch strategy podcast guide is 33 pages, like $5,000 in value. I wish I would have had this when I was launching my podcast. This is huge. You can get this absolutely free at robzwentz.com. Go to robzwentz.com, get that strategy guide, and I will catch you back on the next episode. We're going to talk about monetization, how you make money off of your podcast. I know I'll see you there.